Today we're going to talk about solving inequalities using either addition or subtraction. The objectives for this lesson are to solve one-step inequalities by applying the addition and subtraction properties of inequality, and then to be able to take that solution set and graph it on a number line. The thing to remember when dealing with these inequalities is it's the same as all of our other lessons when we're dealing with equations. We're simply changing the equal sign to a greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, or a less than or equal to sign. So we're going to set up some inequalities now where we're still going to have that variable or that unknown. So let's just take an example here. And we're going to say that n, which is going to be our unknown or our variable, if we add a value of 3 to that variable, we're going to say that it's greater than 8. So how we're going to solve this is just like we do the equations. We're going to use the subtraction property of inequality, which means that whatever we do to the left side of this inequality, as long as we do it to the right, we still have a balanced inequality. Now what's important, just like when solving equations, is that we keep this inequality balanced. So we see that once we subtracted 3 from both sides, keeping the inequality balanced, we have the solution that n is greater than 5. So if you plug that in to solve it, then we can basically say that 5 plus 3 is greater than 8. So then we have 8 is greater than 8, which is obviously not a true statement, right? Because 8 is equal to 8. So what we have to remember is exactly what this solution set is telling us, is that n must be bigger than 5. So it could be 5 and 1/10, 5 and 100th, 5 and 1,000th, whatever the value might be. All we know is that to be able to add 3 to an unknown to make it larger than 8, it has to be some number that is bigger than 5. So how we graph that is we're going to set up a little number line. When you're doing this on your test, I will have the number lines ready for you. But if you're ever in a situation where you have to draw your own number line, it's always good to show the starting point, to show the midpoint of 0. And then I would also throw 1 or 2 negatives on there or 1 or 2 positives, depending on which way your graph is going to go, to show either me or any other math teachers you might have that you definitely understand the direction in which the arrow is going to be drawn. So we have our solution up here is n is greater than 5. So we know that it can't be equal to 5, and just like we discussed in class, if it's not going to be equal to 5, if it has to be bigger, so it can't be 5, then we're going to put an open circle on that value. This lets us know that the answer is not going to be 5, it's something other than 5. And since we have it must be larger than 5, we're simply going to shade to the right, just like that. So whenever you're answering these inequalities on your homework quizzes or tests for me, I want you to make sure that you're giving me 2 answers. You're giving me the inequality, and you're also going to be graphing it. So in theory, every problem that you'll have to solve for me will be two questions per problem. Let's do another one to where we are going to be using the addition property of inequality. It's the exact same, so I'm sure you guys are going to be able to get this quickly. It's not a complicated process if you understood the other lessons that we've been doing. So let's set this up. This problem is number 2 on page 61 in your book under the try these. So we have 4 is less than some number minus 9. Again, we're going to solve this inequality by balancing the inequality using this addition property. So we're going to add 9 to both sides to isolate that variable, which is going to give us 13 is less than n. Now, this is totally fine to leave your answer like this, but I recommend that you move your variable to the left side, because anytime we graph on a number line, we're always graphing relative to our variable. What I mean by that is whatever we see, for instance up here, whenever I graphed this greater than 5, we said that the variable was greater than 5, not that 5 was greater than the variable. So think about that when we're down here. Right now we're saying that 13 is less than n. Well, if you flip that, then you can also say, logically, that n has to be greater than 13. So if 13 has to be less than n, then that means n has to be bigger than 13. So the easy way to do this is just to move your variable to the other side of the inequality. The question is, how do you know where to put, which way to point the arrow, which way to have the inequality? Is it going to be a less than or a greater than? And here's a real easy solution to that. If you notice, the arrow is pointing to the 13, right? So it's simple to just say flip it, but another easy way is to make sure that the arrow is still pointing in the same direction. Make sure that we have that arrow going towards the 13, okay? So now that we have that, we can graph it. Now, like I said, when your answer was in this form, with the 13 is less than n, you could have graphed that, but it's a little bit more challenging, especially since this is our first time dealing with these inequalities. I'm going to go ahead and recommend that you submit your answer with the variable on the left, always. Your final move after solving these inequalities should be to move your variable to the left side so that we're graphing, again, for that variable. Okay, like I said earlier, I want you to always put at least 1 or 2 negatives beside that 0. It just helps with reference for our number line. And I didn't give myself enough room, but hopefully you understand. Okay, again, so we know that n has to be bigger than 13, so it's not equal to 13. So we're going to put an open circle on 13, and then we're going to shade in the direction which our arrow is pointing, which shows that it's got to be bigger than that number. So that is the graph of n is greater than 13. Okay, if we want to do one more, let's do one that has a greater than or equal to. So we're going to say some number x minus 2 is greater than or equal to 1. Okay? So what we're saying here is if we take 2 away from some number, that our answer is going to be greater than or equal to. Another way to say that is to say at least 1. So it's going to be x minus 2 is at least 1. So what could that number be? Well, through that addition property of inequality, we're going to say that x is greater than or equal to 3. You notice the variable's already on the left side of the inequality, so we don't have to move it. So we're set up to graph now. Well, since we know that it is at least 3, greater than or equal to 3, that means that since we have that or equal to sign, it could be 3. We're not saying it is, but we're saying that it could be. So when we know that it could be a number, when we have that or equal to sign, when we have this line underneath the inequality, since we know that it could be 3, we're going to graph it just like we've always done when we have an equal sign, where we actually graph a closed circle on the number line. And then again, we're going to shade to the right. So again, I will have the Shobi account open for you during your normal math class time with the discussion available for you. I'll unlock that. So if you have any questions about this, just send me a message on Shobi. Also, I'm going to tell you your homework assignment is going to be workbook page 3-4. And the actual pages of that is 67 and 68. I'm going to want you to do numbers 2 through 16. And make sure that you are graphing these. I'm going to go ahead and give you an example. For instance, one of your answers is going to be something like this. x is greater than 22. If you get something like this, I don't want you to have to spend all your time drawing a bunch of number lines. So once you get numbers that size, go ahead and, like I said earlier, I want you to always put that 0 and that negative, so give me that reference. And then you can come up here and go 21, 22, 23. You don't have to worry about this area. If you can do this for me, I'll understand that you know what you're doing. Open circle on 22, shade it to the right. All right, again, if you have any questions, just send them to me on Shobi. I hope y'all have a good day, and I'll see you when I get back on Wednesday.